That's a little story time about the time I accepted a package from the UPS guy.
Hi everyone, I am back yet again. So, I am going to bless you with a story time of something that happened to me in the past. And while in retrospect, this is totally not right, I don't know, I can't help but just kind of laugh at it, but it's legitimately like not funny. I started talking to a UPS man and we talked online and you know, that was because that was like before text messaging, because I'm like as old as a dinosaur. And so we talked online and stuff, and we decided to like set up, you know, a time to hang out and, you know, whatever. So he knew I loved horror movies, so he said that he had the whole collection of Halloweens at his house, and that, you know, we should go back to his place and watch these movies and whatever. So at the time, I am 17. And this sounds like a great idea to me. Why not go to like a strange man's house at the age of 17? He told me that he was 22. So I was like, okay, not that big of a deal. So I had my friend drop me off at my meeting spot, which was actually where at the time I worked, which was Ames. For those young ones that don't remember the Ames, there used to be this store called Ames. It was kind of like Kmart. For those of you that don't know Kmart, it's kind of like a small Walmart. Anyway, and I decided that I would meet him there. He agreed, whatever. I'm sitting there. Keep in mind, it's like dark, and I'm sitting there, and I told my ride to go ahead and to leave because they waited with me a while, and he was so late, and I felt bad, but like I really wanted to see this guy because I thought he was really hot, and so I really wanted to hang out with him. So I was like, you know what, just go ahead, leave me here, I'll be fine. So I'm like sitting on the curb, and I'm an idiot.
I am an idiot.
No, we did have text messaging then. No. Yeah, that was when text messaging like first came out. So I think I texted him or something, and like he wasn't responding, and I called him and he wasn't responding, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting stood up, like this is so great. So, you know, I basically was like, dude, I'm sitting outside of Ames and I'm waiting for you. And he's like, well, is anyone with you? And I'm like, no, I told my ride to leave because you were so late. I didn't want to waste their whole night. And he was like, are you sure? Like, you're there all alone? And I'm like, yeah. So at the time, like, okay, that should be red flag number 1. He ends up showing up and he was driving a Volkswagen. He was driving a Volkswagen. At the time, you need to know this fact about me, I was in love with Volkswagen Jettas. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know. I just was. I was obsessed with them. And then I saw that he had like Volkswagen tattoos on him, and I was like, oh my god, this is my soulmate. Like, this is it. This is my soulmate. I mean, I was 17. So anyway, we get in the car, and he's like, well, we'll go back to my place. And I'm like,
okay.
So here, he lives, like, far away from me, like almost an hour away from me, if not an hour, actually. So we get to his place, and he told me, you know, he has a house, whatever. So I walk into his house, and the first thing I am thinking is, okay, this is really, really weird. This guy is 22, and I'm like, and this house is decorated like he is like 70. Young bachelor's style is completely different than that. Well, yeah, that's what it was like an older person's home. They had tchotchkes everywhere, and he had owl figures everywhere. And I love owls, and it sucks. But anyway, so there were owls everywhere, and I was like, what's up with all the owls? And he's like, oh, well, you know, to be honest, you know, I'm still living with my mom, and she's just out of town right now, and this is her house, and blah, blah. So, okay, that was lie number 1, so that should have been flag number 2. But, again, so I was like, oh, okay. So then he puts in the Halloween movies, and we're watching it on the Davenport. So anyway, as we're sitting on the couch and watching Halloween, you know, he starts kind of like harmlessly flirting with me, and no big deal, whatever. I was not in any way denying him because I was into him. I thought he was my soulmate because he liked Volkswagens, and I thought he was super hot, and he had a job where he wore a uniform. And at 17, those are goals. So I was totally fine with it. So anyway, we're watching the movie, whatever, and then I noticed, like, on his coffee table, there is a magazine addressed to a... What's the most popular guy's name?
Checking on that.
Here, so now you know I'm just totally making one up. Noah. I saw this magazine addressed to Noah, and I'm like, oh, Noah? I'm like, I thought you said just you and your mom lived here. And he's like, yeah, it is just me and my mom. I'm like, well, well, then who is Noah? And he's like, oh, that's me. Meanwhile, he told me his name was Ethan. And I'm like, I thought your name was Ethan. Why does this magazine say Noah? And he's like, oh, because Noah is my real name, Ethan is my middle name, and that's the name I go by. So I'm like, okay, weird, but people do that. So again, whatever. I'm like, okay, like, let me see your license. I want to see your license. But he's like, no, I don't have it. And I'm like, no, yes, you do. Let me see. He's like, no, I lost it. And I'm like, no, you didn't. He's like, yeah, seriously, I lost it. And I'm like, okay. He's a UPS man. Like, he's not gonna lose his license, like, not have his license on him. Anyway, so I never did see his driver's license. So then, you know, a couple minutes pass, whatever. And he's like, do you want to come up and see my room? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be a great idea. So I go up, you know, we're going upstairs to see his room, and I get in his room, and I notice that it is very, childish. And I know you're like, well, Leah, you are like the epitome of the person that should not be making fun of someone else for being childlike. And you are correct on that. However, it was just a little bit weirder. But he had, it was painted like this bright color, which is fine, whatever. And then he just had like freaking dinosaurs everywhere. Dinosaurs, like, everywhere. I'm like, okay. He had like a huge dinosaur in the corner. He had a dinosaur telephone. And I'm like, kind of weird, not gonna lie. I wasn't thinking right. I was thinking I was cool because I was hanging out with, like, someone who was older than me and someone that was attractive, and I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. So anyway, since it was so late when I got there, I'm obviously going to spend the night at this guy's house because, like, he lives like an hour away from me. So it was established that I was spending the night. You know, that was fine. Okay, sorry about that. My camera decided it was going to die. So anyway, where was I?
Just take a little sip of this. Because I'm dainty.
So we go to bed, and, like, all the sun from his room coming in through the windows and stuff wakes me up because I am like a vampire.
And like to sleep and live and breathe in the pitch black.
So, like, that sun immediately woke me up. And upon looking at him in the morning sun, you know, that's so unflattering for every human being on earth, I look at him and I'm like, you know, and this is when it really clicked in my brain, like, this dude really doesn't look like he's 22. Like, he really doesn't look like he's 22. But I'm like,
You're being paranoid. Chillax.
so he wakes up and we BS, whatever. We hang out a little bit and he's like, well, I'm going to take you home because I'm, like, really hungry. And I'm like, I'm just thinking, oh. He's like, yeah, I really want to go and get some Chinese food. And I'm like, I love Chinese food. Because at this point, remember, I'm young and I'm in love with this man, I think in my head. I'm like, I love Chinese food. And he's like, oh, that's cool, me too. So let's go, you know, it's a long drive. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Okay, I'm feeling pretty rejected, pretty shitty about my life. I grew up on the corner of an intersection, and not like a super busy highway intersection, like a rural, that damn word, a rural area intersection. So it's like, my parents' house was here, there were roads everywhere, and then right here was like this building. So as we come up that, up the road towards that intersection, I'm like, okay, my parents' house is gonna be catty corner on the right-hand side from where we're coming out at this intersection up here. So we come up to the intersection and he literally pulls in to the like little weird building. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm dropping you off. Why won't you like drive like 2 feet to drop me off at my house home where I live, you know, right there? And I found that like red flag number 391. And I'm just like, okay, dude, whatever. Like, which I was just kind of like put off by that altogether. I was like, you can't even take me to like my door, like not walk me to my door, but like you can't drop me off at my freaking house. And then we were supposed to get together one night and he totally dicked me over. And that was kind of the point where I was just like, you know what, I am like done with this. Like, I'm sick of this. So we didn't talk for a while, and then all of a sudden he started like trying to reach out to me and get back like into my life. And then I was just like, you know what? Absolutely, positively, no. I'm the type of person that's too nice to just be like, dude, leave me alone. When he'd talk to me, when he'd text me, when he'd IM me, I would just be cordial. At this point, then I moved. Like, he even offered just to come to my apartment and like deliver me a package. Insert laughter here. And I was just like, no, like, I don't want to tell you where I live. No. Then one day, all of a sudden, he's like, I wrote this really good blog. Do you want to check it out? And I'm like, what's it about? And he's like,
riding BMX.
I'm like, okay, fine. Like, check out your blog. So anyway, he sends me a link to his blog. I'm reading his blog. Seriously, the one paragraph starts with, what do you get when you take an almost 40-year-old BMXer and whatever came after that, I don't even know, because right at that moment, my mind just like, and keep in mind, this was like 2 years roughly after our first like encounter. I was like, I knew it. I knew that he was older than he said he was. Why is he so dumb to link this to me? Like, obviously he didn't remember he wrote that. Anyway, I'm like, I got him caught. But I don't want to call him out because I'm just that nice. I was just like, oh, that was a cool blog post, whatever. I didn't even finish reading it after that because I was just like, no. And like all of a sudden, everything made sense. Why he didn't want to come get me the first time, if anyone was there with me, why he wouldn't take me out to eat, why he wouldn't drop me off at my house. It all made sense. A couple days later, when he instant messages me, talking his talk, well, here's where I saw my golden opportunity. I was like, do you want to know the truth? And he's like, yes. The truth is that I just kind of wish you were older than you are, because I have like this big fetish for older men now. Okay, so that's what I said to him. And he goes, you're gonna kill me. That was his response. And I said, what? Why? And he's like, I can't tell you. You will be so mad at me.
No, I won't be mad at you.
Like, what? You know, what's up? And he's like, okay. He's like, honestly, I lied to you about my age, and I'm not 20 whatever at this point. He's like, I'm actually 38. So that means like when we hung out, he was probably 36-ish. Cool. So you lied to me. And he's like, yeah, I just didn't think someone like you would want to go out with like an old guy and blah, blah, blah. I should have given like an earful, but I didn't. I was just like, okay, dude, you know, I just said, oh, okay, cool. And then signed off, and I just left it at that. And he reached out to me a few times after that, and I didn't respond. And then that was about it, because I just, A, I was in a relationship and didn't want anything to do with him. And B, like, yeah, I understand that when I was 17, even if he was only 22, that was still like, you know, like technically like I was underage or whatever. But to think that I was, and at the time, honest to God, like at the time I found this out, I didn't think like, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't think much of it. But now myself being a 31-year-old woman, and like when I see teenage boys, they honestly, like, no offense to any teenage boys out there, but they look like teenagers. And I don't see how, I don't know. It's creepy to me now that I'm like a grown woman. That's a little story time about the time I accepted a package from the UPS guy. UPS man, if you're watching this, don't even try to hit me up. Don't find me.